between those
That's
two
right.
places.
Yeah. Garage in the
The whole
sun.
Liam Kumar Day effect. Not really happening.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I rang up Mendenhall and he said he could make
Don't
it.
dig this hole. Phil, Predator guy, always manages to do well what he has to. He is a shocking personality. You guys got a trophy? No.
It was pre-event.
No, my life from Rashad Mendenhall.
Right, you go. Cancel. I'm a tag, Jack. I'm a fucking tag.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the LOC Report. You can see that I am in slightly different locale, but Chris is in his trusty comfortable chair. Hello Chris, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Yes, it's still here. Still here 3.5 months on, so that's...
That's positive signs that we're all still here.
Absolutely. Haven't moved from this chair.
Yes, Chris has been tied to his desk when he's the last man standing at Gold Star at this whole time. Yep, and I am now back to work as well, hence me being in the loft, because this is where I've decided to create our home working environment. So a little bit of change. We've got a different setup. Hopefully the podcast will be the same quality, but it's all good. Happy to be here, and a bit later than usual as well. As I said, I started work this week, so needed a bit of time off during the week just to get back into it. But we're here now, Chris, and the viewers will have been missing the podcast and what
for us now.
Yeah.
So they're wondering, come Wednesday, where are you?
Yeah, it's a staple of the week. It's important to have routine in this whole process because it's easy to lose track of days, and we'll be back on it this week, I'm sure. With that, Chris, what do we like to give the people?
I think it's, as I say, we say it's the league news, but I suspect it's just going to be a rallying call. We'll do it. Let's do it.
Here we go. Here it is. League news. When the jingle's not opening. Oh, come on. Here we go. Right. Oh, come on. What's going on? Play.
No.
Here we go. It's coming. Yes, you can tell this is our first time doing it from my laptop. But we got the jingle eventually. That's fine. League news.
That's it. I wonder what it's going to be. Top of the agenda.
Top of the agenda, of course. If it's not burnt into your brain by this point, it should be very soon. 29th of August is the LOC draft day. Probably in the afternoon or the evening, as church football will likely be back, because I've seen they're already training, Chris.
Yeah, well, I said there's no reason for it not to be now, I don't think. I think it's proven that that big sporting events can still take place. So
yeah,
without crowds.
Yeah, this is the whole argument for I can't think of like, I suppose maybe not cinemas, but other kind of lines of work and everything like that, where if professional athletes can play football with one another, then as a population, in theory, why can't we do more?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can do, I think.
Yeah. I suppose, yeah. There's also Sorry, go on. Sorry. There's also the argument that perhaps the football has come back too soon, and it is obviously monetary reasons why it has returned. But
it's it gives people something to do on a weekend, and I think with anything, you can't stop it. And yes, these clubs aren't charities. They are businesses.
Yeah, for sure.
Life goes on, and and hopefully by having all this and having the sport, it galvanises things around it, such as this. Even this is very, very small scale. Other big media companies can have something to talk about rather than coronavirus,
which is nice. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. And other things that people might find unsavoury, but they do keep the industries going. Such as gambling.
Yeah. I'm very happy match betting has returned.
Yeah, even though maybe it's not the time to gamble your money away when.
No, perhaps not. Yeah, perhaps not. Draft day, circle it in, and our weekly kind of coronavirus and sport update. There are yet more updates. Baseball has finally agreed something to come back. It only took them 2 months longer than it should have done. NBA has released their schedule, even though Florida is obviously looking like a disaster zone at the moment. They still seem to be pressing ahead. But the NFL actually is probably taking a bit of a step back, I would say, over the last week. While they have actually said, bizarrely, that so up till this point they've kind of been taking a one paints all approach, where if one team can't report to their facility, no team can for competitive reasons. Yeah. But when it comes to games, so far their plan is to let each team do what they want when it comes to fans with their stadium. If one state says no, you can't have any fans, and another says play as normal, that will be allowed at the moment, which seems very bizarre.
It does.
Yeah,
but that's the nature of the country, I suppose, isn't it? Is that there isn't a one glove fits all approach in the US.
No,
like it. There's just too many people and too much land to cover. So, but do I think that fans make a massive difference? I think that in certain instances, yes. In places like Pittsburgh, you wouldn't want to play in front of no fans because actually it makes a massive difference. Playing at Arrowhead with fans is a massive plus. But sometimes you just if that's what's to be done, the quality of the players on the field, regardless of the fans in the stands, will always come through. So I think that's what we're finding in the Premier League here as well. Although players don't seem to like that, they don't seem to like playing in front of.
Yeah, well, there was some thought that West Ham would actually do better without the fans, and to that, it looks like absolute lies and bollocks to me. But
when you're bad, you're bad.
If anything, I think they possibly even look worse without all the abuse. I say bring back the abuse. No. Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think I was listening to the Around the NFL podcast, or the NFL one. They actually had quite a good episode on it, and the home team wins about 55% of the time, and obviously there's going to be lots of variation that is baked into that 55%, whether you're actually a good team or not, or indeed if your home field advantage does matter, like it clearly seems to in places like New England and Kansas City, as you already said. But as you say, I suppose it's I got the figure wrong, I think, last week. $3 billion the league stands to lose by not having any fans in the stadium. So, as with all of this money talk, so if there's any way to, claw some of that back, teams are absolutely going to do it. So I guess that's a slightly more positive view of the world. In a slightly more negative view of the world, they have just cancelled the first pre-season game, the Hall of Fame one, which is no surprise, as the players aren't reporting till 28th of July to the facilities. So that would basically, they'd have a week and have to play that game, which just isn't going to happen.
Really, no one cares about them anyway.
No,
I mean,
yeah.
We did this a couple of weeks ago, and I said nobody cares about pre-season games. So the only people that care about pre-season games is the NFL scouts, I assume. But for the common man on the street, so what? Not what you said anything. I'm just going to miss, guys like Christian Wade last year scoring that ridiculous touchdown, and for what?
Yeah, no, it's it's very much for those bottom of roster guys to try and get a chance to make the rosters. That's probably all that's going to go amiss. And maybe the teams are a little bit slower starting in the season, but as we said last week, main players don't tend to play anyway, so that is arguably already what happens. So yeah, that one's definitely gone. It looks like there's probably going to be at least another 1 or 2 weeks of the pre-season go as well. But around all that, excuse me, losing my voice. Around all that, the NFL has also announced that they will be covering the seats nearest to the field for all games this season. So even if you do have fans, they will not be as close to the field as possible. Again, just as a measure to keep things a bit separate from the players and whatnot, I suppose. But
makes total sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it only takes one crazy to jump the fence, doesn't it? So.
Yeah, and of course they're going to put advertising on top of these covered seats, which, fair play to them. I suppose you can't miss a trick there.
Yeah, bridges the gap. We just say if they're losing some money, they got to make it up somewhere.
Exactly. So that's the update in the Corona sport world. But still looks like we will have a season. But yeah, some places in America are not doing too good right now. But we won't dwell on that because we are here to talk about the Hall of Fame today. And as you can see, I actually bothered to use the Hall of Fame logo on the screen for the first time.
Yeah.
Probably made sense. Also, I didn't have another logo picture on my laptop, so I had that one, which was convenient. So, we are here to talk about Mike's nomination today, Bucking the Trend for the Undraftables. This is his first nomination as a new coach to the league, and as always, we'll go through the article. The link to the article is in the comments if you haven't read it yet. Chris, I'm sure you've read it. You've had extra days. Yep, good man. So the Undraftables. So, Mike's first draft in the LOC was anything but ordinary because, as I mentioned in this first paragraph here, he had been in the league literally minutes before his first LOC draft. And, anyone could forgive, and, no matter how experienced you are in the NFL, and Mike had some experience, but to come well out of that, to finish 7-7 at the end of the year, I think you would have said was a rousing success, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And this is what I'll come to later. But yes, it's it. I think that just despite his early problems, as we'll see in a minute, 7-7 was one hell of a result. Bear in mind what happened later. So yeah. Just
to really frame it, I suppose. We won't. We might get to the fortune of that 7-second record later, but if you put yourselves in Mike's shoes at that point, you've been dropped into a completely alien situation with a lot of people around you that you don't actually know. There's a couple. Easy Dude is playing this 15-minute documentary about someone who won a fantasy football league, handing out these trophies and these pennants, and then, he's just walking up to this makeshift podium, reading out players' names. And as Mike, it is now your turn to pick said random name, and you have a sheet in front of you with a lot of random names ranked by position. Have fun. Good luck. That was the situation Mike was in, more or less, wasn't it, Chris?
Absolutely. And I think that'd be difficult for anybody with no prep to go into a draft like that. Especially drafted reasonably high, but he did it. So he did it, and I think on paper, as we'll see in a minute, some of the names that he picked out weren't that crazy. But
absolutely.
As an exercise, it's not something that anyone would really want to find themselves in, perhaps. But maybe it's the best way, just being dropped to the deep end and see if you can swim.
Yeah, absolutely. You only learn by trying and doing, I suppose. And he didn't do too badly with the first pick, Alvin Kamara. He didn't quite live up to the first round selection, but he was still a good player for him. Adam Thielen as well. When he wasn't injured, he was doing really good. And if we can take a look at the draft as well, because after that is when things did start to go a bit downhill for Mike. And hence this nomination, as we'll see. We'll just bring up his draft. Here we go, Bucking the Trend. So with his third round pick, he selected Antonio Brown, which, as we all know, had he played, probably would have absolutely met or even exceeded that pick. But I think he got one game out of him. We'll have a look in a bit. But yeah, we all know what happened with Antonio Brown. That doesn't need repeating. And then the very pick after that, Melvin Gordon, who of course was holding out at the time, and it felt like at the time, Chris, it would have been a lengthy holdout, didn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It felt the same sort of length as Lev Bell the season before. They just they weren't going anywhere, and it took 7 weeks for him to come back. It was a bold move at the time. That sometimes these things sort themselves out, maybe 2, maybe 3 weeks into the season, but that didn't quite work that way. Albeit it was a good player to pick, because I say if he'd have played all the games last season, Melvin Gordon would have been up there, with some of the best that we've seen. But that didn't quite happen, and it was a bit of a slow burner. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those unfortunate things you take a bit of a gamble on sometimes, whether or not you meant to do that or not. And yeah, occasionally it pays off. We've seen that in the past.
Absolutely, yeah.
But just not this time.
No, and we'll come on to what happened with Melvin Gordon in a bit. But yeah, you are right. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Baker Mayfield and Tariq Cohen, I would say at the time they weren't bad picks. In hindsight, weren't the best. They both had disappointing seasons for different reasons, but that's not down to Mike. We all make those kind of picks. It's par for the course in drafting. And then in round 7, the final trio of the undraftables, AJ Green, who was injured, I think, was it in May or June, quite early on in the off-season, pre-season process. And again, he was a player where it was absolutely anybody's guess how long he would have been out for, because even the Bengals seemingly did not know. There was some rumblings he could be back even in week 1, and then some that would say he might not return at all this season, and that's what turned out to be the case with AJ Green. But again, in the same vein as the Melvin Gordon pick, like you said, Chris, if AJ Green had suited up as one of those slow burners, he almost certainly would have been worth it.
No doubt. He would have been locked in on one receiver straight away. And I think down there as well, in the 7th round, you can either pick somebody, very middling, very average, or you can try something different. You can try and see if a bit of a gamble pays off. Because, you're going to get a 3rd round selection in the 7th round, and that's serious value. But, yes, that didn't quite work either.
No. And you see the rest of the names here, there's not really any big contributors out from round 8 down. But again, it's especially in your first draft, it's hard to identify those guys later on who could turn out to pay dividends. So that was Mike's draft. A very mixed bag, you would say. We talk about it here. So if we go back to the first of the undraftables, Antonio Brown, let's take a look at Mike's games. Bear with me while this loads. Amazingly as well, Antonio Brown might still yet return to the league somehow.
He's too good not to. That's it. The guy might be a bit deranged, and that's it. And he's obviously had his problems, but serious problems at that. There's some bad allegations flying around, but then again, so it's not the worst thing that's ever happened to a player in the NFL to then have returned. He's there is no doubt that he is extremely talented.
Yeah,
but he needs to go to a team that can handle that.
Yeah,
I thought the Raiders were a great fit for him. It's a crazy dysfunctional organization with a crazy dysfunctional guy. That's it, and that I think maybe Gruden might have been the guy to try and tame that, but evidently that wasn't the case.
Yeah, well, I think, like you say, the Patriots effectively were the perfect landing spot for him in that case, because at the time there you've got Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, the ultimate, setting the tone for what the organization is. I think if the other stuff had not come out after his signing, and that he obviously did not inform the Patriots of that, it's a completely different story.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt that Bill can handle egos, but and I think he thrives on it. Actually, I really do. I think that he's quite happy to take, guys who maybe haven't worked out for one reason or another franchise, and make them something that's worthwhile. But yeah, I see. It'll be very difficult for any team now to look at Antonio Brown and go, do we want that drama? Do we want that grief?
Yeah. And it would take, I think, as with all these things like we've seen with Colin Kaepernick, the owner needs to be on board with signings like this. Is there an owner that is morally okay with all the things Antonio has done and has been accused of doing? He still does have an open civil case against him. So
you watch him end up with the Cowboys.
Yeah, almost guaranteed to happen. He would fit right in there.
Yeah, well, if there's one owner that won't care about that, I think Jerry's the guy. That's it.
That would be quite the offense if he went there.
Yeah, can you imagine? But I mean, if there's, it's just one of those Jerry type gambles. I
Yeah.
don't know why.
Yeah.
There's something in me that tells me that could be the case, but who knows? Who knows? It could be. It could be interesting. It's either that or just an owner that doesn't care. That's completely just disenfranchised. You know, just doesn't. Again, it wouldn't surprise me if we end up at somewhere like the Jets, because that's
they need the help too.
Add to the drama and the dysfunction there.
Yeah. No, that sounds right. But back to Mike then. So week 2, he did play Antonio Brown, the only player of those 3 top 7 round draft picks we spoke about, and because he had a pretty good game, considering he'd only been there practically a week before playing, and he got 12.1 points in a loss. You can see Buccing the Trend did have a slow start to the season, though they did win week 1. But that was all they would get from Antonio Brown for the entire season, due to the things that happened. So,
not value there. No, I mean, look at the point. Look at the points rundown. It's underwhelming from your first round pick there, and your first and second round pick combined for what? Just over
13.5.
13.5 points. What a thrill! So, I think at that point, alarm bells would start to ring in my head that perhaps it's not what I expected.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially if Antonio Brown after that, so the wheels weren't really fell off the wagon, then where are your points going to come from? Yeah,
for sure. And as we've already mentioned, so that's pretty much the beginning and end of undraftable number 1, Antonio Brown. But undraftable number 2, Melvin Gordon, who he did take him in the 4th round, did fare a bit better. So, like we said, he was poised for a lengthy holdout, but fortunately for Buccing the Trend, he actually did return in week 5, which I think when a player holds out, it's either week 8 or week 10 or something, they have to report by for their contract not to toll another year. And luckily, we're on the wrong team here, Buccing the Trend. And luckily for Mike, he did return in week 5. Now, I don't think... he did play him in week 5, which probably wasn't the smartest move, because as we know, with players returning from lengthy holdouts, it's effectively like the start of the season for them. In terms of conditioning and getting up to football speed, he didn't have a great time of it in week 5 with only 4 points. But obviously, as you can see there, only scoring 61 points, he wasn't even in the worst 3 options that played that day for Buccing the Trend.
He certainly wasn't the reason why he lost the game. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no. But after that, to his credit, he stuck with him, and I'll just flip back to the article to double check here. But I think after that, he actually did start to ramp it up quite quickly. He wouldn't score double-digit points until week 9, so we could see another 4.8 there, and another loss. If we go to week 7.
This is when I'm in my head. I've got him coming back properly.
Yeah. So you see, he's slowly raising the points as the week goes on, from 3 to 4 to practically 7. Mike gets a win somehow in week 7 against Castle.
I forgot to score less.
And then we go to week 8. Again, he nearly hits double digits, 9.4. There's nothing wrong with a 9.4 there. And then week 9 is really the first breakout week for Melvin Gordon, where he does topple over into double digits and helps Buccing the Trend secure a win, where he got 23 points. So that's when he really was up and running.
Huge.
Yeah. And hopefully if we click this open, we can see his point totals through the season. We can indeed. So although only be half of them, that's